Hello everyone, in today's video we're going to be taking a look and going for a flight and doing a little bit of the basics of this amazing flying boat slash float plane here. This is the Marchetii S.55. Now when you purchase this one over on the marketplace, you'll probably discover that there are two different variations you get. You get this version here that I'm sitting in right now, this is the base model, and you also get the X model, which has got all sorts of fun stuff all kind of equipped inside of it. This is a unique airplane. Like I said, I love these old school kind of golden age airplanes because of how just different they are. So let's go ahead and climb in and start by familiarizing ourselves with some of the things going on inside of this airplane. First things first is you'll notice that I sit here above where the passengers sit down below, and I have myself a little windscreen as if I were our silly little motorboat kind of a thing like that. You'll notice our controls are just kind of traditional fabric controls. We don't have any fiberglass or plastic anywhere in here. Got this little glass windshield. You can see the little screws used to kind of screw it into place. And I like this little kind of nice Italian leather thing going on. Looking down, you can see my control yoke. Look at that. It's this giant metal box that I have here. This huge wheel. I wonder what motor car they got this thing off of, kind of a deal. Totally wild. Of course, this whole yoke does move. I've got the controls from ailerons here. We have ourselves a handy-dandy little gauge down here in the middle here, just to kind of keep an eye on some of the different stuff that we have, kind of our different trim options here. Swinging down here, you're going to notice all of our lovely instrumentation here is all in Italian, which is fantastic. I love the fact that I do not speak Italian at all. I don't even jokingly speak Italian here, but I'm pretty confident this is quantity of benzina kind of a thing. So this would be fuel. We have all of our different items for our different types of pressures moving across. I love anemometer. I like that. We make for our variometer. This is meters a second. I'm so tickled by that. You have our altimeter located right here. We have ourselves kind of moving down all different items for different temperatures. Of course, moving down even further, we have our RPM gauges, which are very important. You can also see kind of what pressure we have here. And I like how the unit is in bar, kind of a thing like that. And when you swing all the way over here onto the right, you're going to observe that we have ourselves some switches, and we also have ourselves a modern radio. I really appreciate the time that they took to go ahead and put the sucker in here, because this would be a very fun thing to do in VATSIM, but we have no transponder. So you have to actually use a virtual transponder if you choose to do that. There's a couple other handles we need to keep an eye out for on this when we're operating. I love the fact that the propeller's above our head. It's got to be loud. If you scroll down here, you're going to see that you have all the engine controls. And what I'm so tickled with, if you actually look, the engine controls are just metal cables and rods that go right into the engines that are sitting directly above our head. The other control we're going to keep an eye out for is down here on the floor. We have our coolant radiator flap. I fiddled with this a little bit. It doesn't seem to be linked directly to your cowl flap button, if you have a button for that. And of course, over here on the left side, we have our pitch trim option, which allows us to kind of tweak it. Now, let me start by saying this is a flying boat here. This thing is engineered to take off and land from water. This is no simple float plane, even though it's kind of got a lot of different components. Honestly, to me, I would almost jokingly call this flying boats, but again, I don't know what you want to look at it from that. So getting this thing started, first things first, this is a daytime VFR plane. This is not a night plane. This is not a cloudy plane. And we have real world weather coming down here. We're down here in southern Connecticut. This is the lovely base of the Connecticut River. We're actually going to fly down to the coast today and actually kind of go land by the beach kind of a thing. So we've got to get this thing started. And you'll notice that we have no GPS. So we do have this lovely little navigational device kind of chilling in here. It is very complicated when you look at it the first time until you take your first turn and actually let this thing settle and realize exactly how this navigational instrument works. But we'll deal with that a little bit later on in the video. So what we're going to do to get this thing started is we're going to swing over here. I'm pretty sure this doesn't mean drummer. I'm going to press the battery button. When we hit it, there's no drama. Nothing happens. I love the little hatch here to climb into the wing. Man, that's old school. I love this stuff. And then there's this one right here. This is going to be our APU. So when you click that, take a listen. Isn't that so cute? There's a little tiny engine over here. Now, by flipping that switch, basically, you're doing that. That's going to give us our necessary electricity to basically get the big guys turned on. We have two different luce. I'm pretty confident that's light. And, of course, this is our panel lights. This is our compass light. Go ahead and pop that on real quick to help us see a little bit better in that funky compass. And then we have our two fuel switches. The book basically says we got both fuel switches on. Hear it? Is that so cool? Man, this thing's old school. I love it. We're now going to come down here. We're going to make sure our mixture switches are in the correct position. So you're going to go grab them and pull them all the way up. There are no RPM propeller controls. This is not a constant speed RPM or anything like that. So you don't have to worry about that. Swinging down in the middle, we have our magneto switches. The book says basically flip both of them on. And then we're ready to pull the starter. The book says we get 15 seconds on the starter. Just an experience here. I'm actually going to crack the throttles just a little bit to make sure that when it catches, it has enough airflow to actually get going. So we're going to go ahead and pull and hold. And that should get the one in the back. Yep, looking good. And we're going to go ahead and pull and hold again to get the one in the front. Oh, Oh, that is glorious. Glorious. Go give it a couple little RPM. You don't want to crank it up too fast. You notice we don't have a boat anchor. They didn't simulate that for us. So unfortunately, we're kind of at the mercy of that. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go pop off our fuel switch pumps. Let me go float my head all the way over here. I'm really surprised how little stuff we actually have for the purposes of dragging the water. Like, this thing really gets going quick. So now that our engines are stabilized and give it just a little bit of RPM, we're going to line ourselves up towards the wind here. And basically, we don't have a POH or anything. We have little information we're able to kind of read in all the different resources and documentation they gave us. But takeoff on this thing's pretty easy. We're just going to line ourselves smoothly up with the wind. And we're just going to gently give it full power here. So now, because we are a float boat, I'm going to go ahead and pull the yoke a little bit towards me. We're trying to get up on the step now. So what's going to happen is as we pick up a little bit of speed here, it's going to start to float just a little bit. You can see it starts to do a little bouncy thing. And we're just going to go ahead and hold it right on the edge of the step until we have enough power. And then we're going to start gliding directly into the sky there. That is really all there is to getting this thing airborne. Now, there's really not a lot to it as far as that component goes. Now, we don't have a lot of information as far as, specific speeds, but we do know that you can get a pretty decent climb speed of right around 70 to 80 knots if you're looking for it. We can use maximum power throughout most of the flight with the exception of cruise. And I'm kind of taking a quick little look down here. We're doing about 130 kilometers per hour there. We have plenty of pression, so I'm not going to worry about that in the slightest. And we're just going to enjoy a nice, gentle climb as this thing starts to get a little bit of altitude here. This is not a high-performance airplane. Even though we have almost 1,000 horsepower above our heads right now, that doesn't necessarily give us the performance because we are a boat. We have a tremendous amount of drag that we have to overcome in order to stably get this thing up. So if you take a look at my cabin angle right here, this is considered kind of a good angle to go ahead and get this plane climbing at. You'll notice that the base of my windshield there just almost kind of hits that. In the horizon itself, I think we're probably, let's call it about 6 or 7 degrees nose up here. We're not being aggressive at all with it. So I don't want to try to stall something like this, especially knowing that the people hanging out inside the floats are probably not going to appreciate it. Look at the size of the elevator on that thing. It's huge. So we're just going to kind of slowly make our way into our little turn here. Again, I'm not doing anything too aggressive. You're going to need a little bit of rudder in the turns. Believe it or not, because the rudders are so large, you don't have to kick them nearly as hard as you think you need to as you're making a turn. Currently, RPM-wise, you can see we're hovering right around 1,650. This is pretty good for us for this particular time. And like I said, we're just kind of spinning around and making our way towards the south, so we can start heading towards the coast. There we go. And again, coming out of our turn, we just want to be gentle. Treat this thing kind of more like a van than treating it like a sports car kind of thing like that. Go ahead and give ourselves a couple thwaps of trim real fast. And it looks pretty good. Just trying to trim this thing out. It's quite a bear, but it's also kind of easy. I can let go of the controls, and you can actually see it's pretty stable here. It's going to pick up a little bit of nose as we climb here. Swinging down here, you can see it. Like I said, we're doing about 130 kilometers an hour, which is definitely the speed that seems to be pretty good as far as our initial climb out. We could probably put the nose down a tiny bit here, but like I said, this is working pretty well for us. It is a little bit of an optical illusion because of the orientation of this aircraft. Poking down here, you can see we're starting to climb up a little bit here. We got kilometers in this one. Actually, I think I can't quite read it, but I believe this. Yeah, exactly what I was thinking. Variometer, we're going about 2 meters a second. Definitely not that fast. And now we're slowly making our way up directly. And like I said, it's just so cool. Our RPM is sitting down here. Temperatures are looking good. Temperatures are all set, and we're basically on our way up. Now, normally when I usually do aircraft with this much power, you're constantly afraid of basically, going too fast with a climb this shallow. But believe it or not, this aircraft it's just so much drag. I mean, if you look at it at the top, look at that. I sit here, hey, look at how your head is huge. So you can just get an idea of the scale of this plane. All right, so we're crossing a pretty good altitude here. I like this right here. We're going to go and push the nose down a little bit. We're about 1,500 feet, give or take. I'm just going to let the nose come down a little bit. Now, the documentation says that our cruise setting on this particular aircraft is 95% power maximum. Unfortunately, where does it know where your power is? So we're going to be using our tachometer to set that. So right now we're cruising, let's call that about 1,700 RPM seems to be where we're kind of stabilizing as I'm kind of getting the nose down into the proper position here. So 95% of 1,700 is not that much. It's actually just a little pulling the throttle back. For my cases, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and back the throttle out a little bit, and we're going to get ourselves down to about 1,600 RPM, which is going to be a pretty good place to sort of chill. As soon as you do that, of course, the aircraft is going to as you can hear. I love the engine set in this one. They did a really, really, really nice job with the sound effects on it. And now I'm going to level this off with the horizon the best I can. Oh, notice we have no attitude indicator anywhere on this thing. And on account of because of that, it makes it a little bit difficult to kind of find your horizon. The best way I found to do it is if you look at the variometer right there, it's just to the left of the wheel. I'm going to go ahead and point that. See how it starts to spike up a little bit? Basically, you're going to get that as close to zero. Don't chase after. If you see it go up a little bit, tap the trim a little. See it go up a little bit, tap the trim. And just sort of let go of your controls and sort of let the plane sort of tell you what it wants to do, concentrating on the trend. But you can see I've just about got us fairly level here. We do have some pretty substantial winds today. This is the spring for us, and this is a wind season. The other wind season where I live in Connecticut, this is southern Connecticut, by the way, is also the fall. We tend to get very, 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 very strong winds. It's just kind of the nature of the beast here. We don't really have the mountains to protect us. All right, so we're cruising along here. We can get a nice little look here. This is a Long Island Sound that we're coming off of our 12 o'clock. This would be like the perfect application for this aircraft, with the exception of the fact, let's see here, we're not in Italy. So we're just going to continue making our way approach. Now, range-wise, it's got a pretty substantial range. You can do several hundred kilometers in this. Keep in mind, you are not a fast airplane, so that's going to take a substantially long time to travel. If you actually look over at my benzina here, my Quanta, you can see that it barely sucked down anything in our initial climb there. So we do have a really, really, really solid range on this one. So we're going to go ahead and start getting ready for our landing here. Like I said, it seems, wow, we've only gone a couple feet here. Why is it time to land? Like I said, we want to keep the video somewhat short so that you get an opportunity to check this plane out. So we're just going to kind of settle down just a little bit. Just doing the math in the back of my head here. What is that? That's going to be, carry this, what is that, about 20 hours endurance or something like that on a full tank? It is ridiculous if you really want to think about it in another kind of way. It's another reason why aircraft like this are just so different than a lot of the aircraft that we have today. Okay. Sweet. So we're going to go ahead and get ourselves set up for landing here. So the wind today is more or less coming directly out of that direction. That's due west right now. So for our landing approach, naturally, we're going to want to land into the wind, and we're going to get ourselves ready for that now. So I'm going to go ahead and gently go ahead and pull the throttle back a little bit. You don't want to pull the throttle back too far. I kind of say about halfway is about the maximum that you want to. This aircraft will slow down very, very quickly, again, because of all that drag. We do not have any high drag devices on here. We don't have flaps on here. We do have a full bar and somebody who can, a table service meals and everything. Not really, that'd be cool. But we do have a lot of those amenities that unfortunately don't help us aerodynamically. So we're unfortunately going to have to really, really take our time on our descent here. Now, one of the things I was mentioning a little bit earlier is this really, really, really funky compass that we have here. Now, when you take an initial look at that, your brain is saying, what direction are we traveling? So let me see if I can help you out a little bit with that as we're kind of losing some altitude. Let's go ahead and bring ourselves basically in this direction. This is going to be very, very close to south. Go ahead and pause us right there, so we're just kind of frozen. And we're going to come down and take a look at this instrument right here. So now you're going, this does not make any sense. How am I supposed to go ahead and determine what exactly direction we're traveling? Well, it's actually pretty easy. If you look at this instrument here, this is going to be telling me the particular place that we're adding the above measurement to. So right now, you can see that our current heading is 100 and, what do you want to call that? 177 degrees, 178 degrees. Now, if I pull a turn directly to the west, watch what happens. Go ahead and unpause ourselves here. We need to come to the west anyway. Let's see, west is where it's going to be basically parallel with the coastline here. It's going to be west. Going to bring us down this way. And we're just going to kind of line up with the coast. If anybody's hit the beach today, probably a pretty cool day to go down to the beach. But hey, you never know. There are some hardcore folks out there. Let's go ahead and pause again. And we'll float down to our sneaky little compass here. So look down here, and it's the same thing. You'll notice here that we got the 2, and you'll also take a look here. I'm at about 272 degrees. Isn't that different? That's just such a different way to do this. But you can see we're hovering right about 272 degrees. This is a very, very pinpoint precise instrument, relatively speaking. And you can see very clearly we're about that particular point here. Now, as far as when this thing starts bouncing around because of the turbulence, it's going to be very, very difficult to read. Now, if this needle right here were pointing to the 10 here, we'd be at 310 degrees. Kind of neat if you think about it. All right, let's go ahead and put this thing down on the ground. All right, getting this thing on the ground, pretty easy, because we can't really go on the ground. We got to go in the water. So we're going to line ourselves up, like I said, at reduced power by about half throttle right now. We're starting to slow down just a little bit. You'll notice that when I pull the throttle back, the aircraft just kind of starts descending nice and smoothly. I basically don't have to touch my trim if I've trimmed it properly here. I take a look around. I love these look at these seats. There's not even a safety belt on this thing. Who paid for this? This is crazy. I love aircraft like this. Now, all right, we're going to line ourselves there, and we're just going to slowly make our way down. Again, all I've done is a power reduction here. I've not done anything fancy with my trim, and we're just going to enjoy our nice and relaxing descent here. A lot of this aircraft is by fly-by-TLAR. That looks about right method here, TLAR. And like I said, it's really a matter of kind of feeling out, what the rates are like, what the wind is like. This is not like a precision instrument. It's just different from a lot of the aircraft that we're used to flying. Now, believe it or not, after making that power reduction, because we have so much drag, I am more or less level right now. And it seems kind of surprising, but if you actually look, we're basically just gently sinking our way down. Now, theoretically, if I didn't touch anything right now, we'd hit the water really, really, really hard. You can take a look right now. I think we're going down. What do we have here? It's about 3.5 meters per second. That would be a pretty dramatic hit on the water. But you notice that to actually transition to that last little bit, by the way, notice how very, very obvious our step is here that we're using to get us out of the water. That it basically go kabam into the water. We'd pull the nose up. We'd be fine to land here. So I'm going to go ahead and aim for those islands over here. Again, my power is pretty much neutral here. It's one of the things I respect about this aircraft. It is definitely a use the throttle to go up and down sort of an airplane here. We're going to slowly make our way, and we're kind of aiming between these two islands. I think there's a really nice beach right there that we can actually utilize for this purpose. I'm going to try to avoid, of course, in the real world, we wouldn't just fly a float plane down onto the water. If you do that, you're probably going to hit a log because you didn't check first. So normally what we do is we'd actually fly over the water, probably about 50 to 100 feet, look around, confirm everything looks safe, then we'd come back around and actually put it down in the water. We really, really could not appreciate the danger of the surprise there that, of course, was hitting us down. So we're getting a little bit closer here. You can see this becomes the optical illusion that everybody hates landing water planes, that the reality is we're actually pretty low. We're probably about, 30, 40 feet off the ground right now, or the water, I should say. And your brain is telling you you're 8 feet off the water. Again, welcome to landing on water. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a power reduction here, and we're going to allow the plane to just slowly start reducing. My power right now is probably about the 1/4 point here. And you see how the aircraft just seems like the horizon just slowly climbing while I'm holding it steady. What we're trying to do here is we're trying to put the step of the plane into the water first. I'm actually going to add just a tiny bit of power here. I don't want to do a full power off. And all we're going to do is we're just going to glide the plane ever so carefully. Ooh, into the water. There we go. I feel like Bob Ross for a second there. Get this happy little water. And there's the sploosh. And we're just going to hold the plane on the step once it settles. There we go. And now we're going to keep the nose up just a little bit. You can see that we're settling into the water. We want to get just heavy enough here. There it goes, into the water. Now, of course, I can release the pressure on the stick gently. And you can see that we're sitting here nice in the lovely Long Island Sound. Now, of course, in the real Long Island Sound, there'd be some dude on a sailboat doing one of these by us right now. But hey, that's the way that happens. Now, a lot of people, of course, if you're unfamiliar with these kind of planes, you're going to go ahead and stand on the brakes. As you can see, we don't have brakes. You just have to basically let the drag of the water slow you down. One of the things you want to keep in mind of is if I go ahead and kick the rudder over here really aggressively to the side, if I release the rudder, what the plane's going to do is it will weather vane. You'll see it kind of pull itself into the wind here. So if you're not sure what direction the wind is, just let go of the rudder and the plane will do a nice job kind of settling in on its own. So now, of course, if we wanted to make our way into the beach over there, go ahead and kick the gas a little bit, and we'd slowly start making our way over there. Now, I'm not 100% sure what the draft on this particular flying aircraft is. I don't really want to find out the hard way and destroy the bottom of the airplane. So this would be a good time, of course, to head to the little buoys that basically tell you that the float plane can land here and have somebody basically put a cable around your nose, pull you up, put the wheels on the bottom, and then pull you clear of the water kind of thing like that. So as I was saying, though, this is a very slick plane. If you try this in VR, you will be so tickled. It's an incredible little plane that you're cruising around in. And it's mechanically relatively simple. It's got a really funky compass on it that works really, really well. If you know how to read it, that is. I find it a little confusing personally. And in general, it's just a neat plane. And I look forward to flying it more. Enjoy.